What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. We are gonna review Edemion. He's talking about the controversy going on with PlayStation Plus and the refunds and people walking away from it. And as a gamer myself, this is very sad news. But let's see what's going on.
Canceled their PlayStation Plus as well, which that's a big statement to make. Another user is seen here confirms they are not renewing their PlayStation Plus come July 14th when it expires for them. Another user is seen here also canceled their Plus subscription as well in open defiance against Sony.
Woo!
Another
People are
user also
canceling left and
confirms,
right.
yep, they canceled as well. Here's another person confirming they too are canceling Sony services due to the physical media stuff. Another user here rallies others to cancel their PS Plus as they do the same. I like how Sony's automated email also says, "We're sorry to see you go." I mean, you caused this to happen. What do you mean you're sorry? But here's another user confirming they're canceling as well. Here's another user also saying they're done with PlayStation and canceling. I could keep going, but you get the point. Everywhere is filled with people just canceling their subscriptions. All of these posts shown alone, they come from this post here, where this user showed people how to cancel their subscriptions.
Why are they canceling? Is it because they're raising the price? That's the only thing that makes sense to me. But how much are they raising it though? Is it to astronomical levels?
Point being is that people are walking away from PlayStation en masse. But not only are people walking away from Sony in mass protests, a lot of users are also citing the Insomniac leak that happened, if you don't remember, as more reasons for why this whole thing is kind of bogus the more you look into it. So if you forgot, Insomniac, that's the Spider-Man, Wolverine, Ratchet & Clank development studio that got hacked a while back, well, tons of stuff actually got leaked, like future games and more. That's how we know the Venom game is coming at some point and then some. Anyways, the part that matters here is from the Insomniac leak that key information got shown that revealed how Sony's first-party games were selling in a physical versus a digital format. As GameGPU.com reported here recently, the Insomniac leak tells a very different story compared to what Sony is actually saying publicly. As they say here, recent claims that digital versions of games account for 78% of total PlayStation console sales have been taken out of context. This statistic includes numerous indie titles and older games that are exclusively available digitally, significantly distorting the overall picture. To objectively assess true demand, it's necessary to consider major releases that were released simultaneously on physical media and in digital stores. So already the numbers are being manipulated on purpose in order to paint a different picture than what Sony is actually saying. It does get more in depth though. Let's read this next part. Data from Insomniac Games leaked last year reveals a completely different picture. According to internal Sony documents, 31 of the 33 major story-driven exclusives sold more on physical discs. Uncharted 4 accounted for 83%.
So this all started with the leak that happened, I think it was last year, with the Insomniac leak. And for some reason, they want to increase the PlayStation Plus price and get rid of plastic disc, which is pissing off the gaming community because people like to own games. They like treasure, especially games they like. So you're messing with everything that people hold near and dear to their hearts. So you guys are gonna have to bring things back to normal because the fans are dead serious. They're gonna boycott the hell out of PlayStation Plus and anyone who's trying to go completely digital.
Of physical sales. Sackboy and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart accounted for over 75%. Spider-Man and The Last of Us Part 2 accounted for over 60%. Digital sales dominated primarily in the games as a service segment, such as MLB The Show, the baseball game, where users prefer to stick with discs for regular gaming sessions. So essentially, Sony saying their games sell less on physical to such a degree might actually not be the full truth. Of course, the games that are being used from the Insomniac leak come from years back, but since then, things could have changed dramatically. Either way, the evidence points that in
Why
terms of
lie,
Sony's
Sony?
first-party
Why
games,
lie?
they have not in fact sold better digitally over physically, at least according to Insomniac's internal leak data. And as they said, the numbers being skewed could be using digital-only games as a pivot to influence those decisions. So why do that? Well, it's simple. Publishers have to pay upwards of 30% of each copy sold to retailers when you buy them physically. So in general, they're losing 30% of their profits per copy sold to you in a store, but if that were digital only, well, they get it all, first party anyways. So this pivot, in theory, could be happening in order to ensure that Sony has complete control, but in return, you are losing options. This can't even be disputed. I mean, again,
Oh, it's because they want to collect all of the royalties for themselves and cut out the stores that they sell their games in. They don't want to give a percentage away. I knew you guys were greedy bastards. Greedy.
it leaked from Insomniac, a first-party Sony studio themselves. Although the backpedaling is already happening. We have damage control articles like this one recently from Vice that states that only 12% of sales of Sony's top-selling games were from physical sales in 2026. The source that Vice is referencing is Alinea Analytics, which posted the games that have sold the most on PS5 and how much each game sold digital versus physical. Here's the image they're referring to. EA Sports FC26 is the highest-selling game on PlayStation this year. As you can see, apparently 12% of sales were physical, the overwhelming was digital. For Resident Evil Requiem below it, 27.8% of sales were physical, the rest were digital. Arc Raiders obviously was all digital because it's a digital only game, which again, that will dramatically skew the digital versus physical debate when that game isn't even available physically anyways, which is not really fair, but it is what it is. As it keeps going, the physical split is smaller than digital either way, and they again also use games like Forza Horizon 5 as another digital gacha card, but that game too is digital only on PlayStation, so again, it skews heavily in one direction too. Another big part of this article is that FC26 was also used by 6.4 million PlayStation users via PlayStation Plus itself. However, Vice also confirms, as I highlighted there, that first-party PlayStation games are indeed selling more physically than third-party, and they also cite that Insomniac leak too. So even the damage control articles that are coming out in defense of Sony, they can't even deny that physical is, to some capacity, still a viable way of selling games, because there is absolutely a fan base out there who buys them. For me, I always buy my JRPG games physically, especially if they're made by niche dev studios. Even then I still do it, because those copies are very hard to come by as the years go on. Even from AAA studios, like I love owning physical versions of, say, all the Final Fantasy games, right? I usually buy Final Fantasy games twice myself. One to play that I will buy digitally or even physically, and then one to keep sealed physically on my shelf too. Is it a drain on my wallet? Absolutely, I know it is, but I do it anyways. Because if it's for a game I love, I have no problem double dipping myself, but the point still stands. Physical is still something that people want, obviously. I mean, we've seen games that are older rise in price like crazy for a long time too. You can go to any mom and pop shop that sells games and see what I mean. Super Nintendo games still sell for hundreds of dollars a pop, as do old school PlayStation 1 games. Even PS3 ones. For example, X-Men Origins Wolverine on PS3, as seen here on Canadian eBay, is $110 for a game that is well over a decade old. I think PlayStation software that is physical, if kept in mint condition and preserved, could in theory become the next batch of games that people decades in the future seek out at higher price points too, like we do Super Nintendo and stuff right now. Because again, owning a game physically, or really anything, it just hits different, right? I still own my PS1 Final Fantasy games. I still have Chrono Cross and Legend of Dragoon on PlayStation 1 physically on my shelf. Those games mean something to me. I think getting rid of physical in general is just a bad idea. I mean, physical media is still huge. Go look at how large the Pokemon card industry is right now. Even Magic the Gathering is still making boatloads of money too, right? For example, I collect the Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering cards. When I buy the booster boxes, they were originally around $200 each. Now, as seen here, they're like $300 each. And don't even get me started on how expensive the special booster box bundles cost. They're like thousands now. The point is that physical media is important because they are collector's items. That is is what they are. I mean, I have a massive collection of Yu-Gi-Oh cards from when I was a kid still to this day, and I'm still buying them. I want all the originals. I wouldn't care about those cards if I had them only in a digital format, but the fact that I have them physically in my hand and I can see them and hold them, I mean, that's everything, man. That's why physical matters, and Sony is 100% ruining that future of that potential industry and that fan base by doing what they're doing. It's no wonder why people are refunding their PS Plus and walking away the way that they are, because Sony's not catering to what these people want anymore. Even IGN has taken the side of the players, which is not very common for them. As seen here, they call PlayStation's decision offensive, and you cannot trust digital purchases, and you cannot trust the corporations that offer them. Based, actually. I love to see that. As IGN said it here, the ability to simply re-download content we've purchased in the past should be a bare minimum service, and I agree with that. In my previous video about Sony, I spoke on Studio Canal. That's a distributor of movies, okay? So they revoked over 500 movies from PlayStation's library. And whether people paid for those movies or not, they were removed nonetheless because you ultimately did not own them. And once those licenses ran out, which they did, everyone who bought those movies lost their access for forever. And that's scary, right? Because that is 100% losing access to what you paid for. That's why people are in open rebellion right now, because you don't own anything. The crazier part is that Sony has already turned that switch, and things are now moving very, very quickly, okay? Look at this here. The Verge reported that Sony's disc factory that has created the vast majority of their physical inventory is already being repurposed. The factory, which is located in Austria, has already been notified in advance of these changes, and Sony has also invested a further $34 million into the factory in order to repurpose that factory to shift from making PlayStation physical media to now optical micro lenses instead. These micro lenses can be used in AR or VR headsets, medical devices, or camera sensors. But the days of Sony's factories making physical discs to ship out around the world is already ending for their biggest factories, which tells me that this is happening whether people want it or not, because I doubt that Sony is going to, pivot back from their tens of millions in investments here to shift to something else now. Other brands are already making fun of Sony too for their changes because it's stupid. Like KFC, for example, is seen here, who said their food will no longer be available to eat, but instead you can now only eat their food through fake PNG formats, obviously to make fun of Sony. KFC didn't even stop there. They then said here that they will release DLC when it comes to sauces, and that each will be sold separately, and within the year they're going to introduce the fried chicken pass so you can get the whole catalog for a monthly price. Obviously it's fake, I know that, but they're still making fun of PlayStation Plus with that one, and that's great. You also won't even be able to use VPNs to access their menu in other countries, as KFC says here, or even share your chicken with friends. Again, a clear joke about Sony not allowing game sharing, and if you pirate their chicken, they're gonna come and find you at your house. They're having fun, at least somebody is, but when KFC puts it like that, yeah, it's kind of ridiculous when you say it out loud. Even Domino's Pizza had fun with this, where they said this in response to trends in the gaming industry. As of the 1st April 2027, Domino's UK will cease production of physical pizzas and shift to production of digital pizzas only. Consumers will be able to download our full range of delicious pizza codes and, using the power of the imagination, enjoy them in an entirely virtual sense. All I gotta say is,
crazy.
Yes, just keep clowning on Sony, okay? I love to see it. Keep doing it. But if the public embarrassment and the repurposing of their factories wasn't enough, Sony has also announced that PlayStation Plus as a service is gonna get even more expensive potentially, as Insider Gaming said here. So the gist of this was that Sony CEO Hideaki Nishino, alongside Herman Hulst and others at PlayStation, were answering questions with investors as to what the future of the whole company will have, obviously. And the general idea was that, as you can see here, that Nishino said that PS Plus is offering strong value to their player base, and that currently 40% of PS Plus users are subscribed to the highest tier of Plus available, because it gives them access to everything, obviously. But while PS Plus is a key driver of profit for Sony, the challenge is, according to Sony, they need to ensure that the service is able to continue as it needs to keep requiring new games to be added constantly to the service. For example, in July 2026, which is right now as this video being made, Modern Warfare 3 is the main headline game for PS Plus users, a game that took hundreds of millions of dollars to create for Activision. And if people stay subscribed, they can continue to play these games they have in their accounts for as long as they are still subscribed. For example, I have been using PS Plus since about 2012 or 2013, I think it was. So the amount of games that I have saved in my library from redeeming games every single single month is borderline ridiculous. I think the majority of my library on PlayStation is the Plus games. It's gotten to the point where it's better, honestly, to not buy as many games because they might just be added to the service anyways. Personally, for me, at glance anyways, PS Plus is a solid deal on paper. I think if someone were to buy a PS5 or even a 4 right now, they would subscribe to Plus for a year and they would objectively get more games that way through the service than spending extra money to play them one by one. But regardless of that value, which is a lot, I will admit, the end all gotcha argument is still yes. At the end, you still don't own anything. And you're right, you don't. At any moment, right, Sony can remove anything they want, which they do every month. Some game gets removed from these services. They do. And this, again, ties into that whole digital future and why people are so angry about this, and rightfully so. Because yes, you owe nothing in this sense, right? So to many, what's even the point? And if all your games access is tied to PS Plus, which is likely many people at PlayStation, then a price hike for another update for PS Plus in the future is going to be inevitable, because Sony can now just charge more and more. And then you will have to pay for it if you want that access still. Like Nintendo has also increased their pricing for their online subscription too. Xbox is the only one that has reduced their price, but that reduced price comes with games people...
Bro, I have never seen corporate greed work out for anybody, bro. I've never seen corporate greed work out for anybody. And it's the same thing happening in this situation. They're going to fail miserably. Miserably. Oh, boy. What a mess. What a mess. But I'm going to stop over here. I don't want to do the whole video. If you guys want to watch the whole video, just go to Edemion's channel and check him out. Tell him I sent you. Give him a like. And that's it for me. Have yourselves a good day, guys. Peace.